I do not even keep WhatsApp on my phone. Mukesh Bhai doesn't know the names of all the channels he owns. Farmers struggle. Government of India, as whistleblowers have said, got Google, Twitter, Facebook to change their algorithms.
ഈ മഹാരാജ്യത്തിലെ ഒരു ചെറിയ വിഭാഗം ജനങ്ങൾ മാത്രം സംസാരിക്കുന്നതാണ് എൻ്റെ ഭാഷ. പക്ഷേ ഞങ്ങളുടെ ഭാഷ സജീവമാണ്, ചലനാത്മകമാണ്.
But do you miss being a full-time traveling reporter? I am still, Ari, I am getting many others to also write and report. People's Archive of Rural India. I think that I want to know that there are lots of other people who will do this reporting when I'm gone. But I am still doing it. I'm still doing these stories, and I'm planning a very large project on farmers, which includes Dalit farmers, Adivasi farmers, women farmers, tenant farmers, landless farmers, agricultural workers. Then I think it will take 2-3 years, but it will mean going to every state and union territory in the country, to the rural area of every state and union territory. This is new and this sounds very interesting. What is this project about? Worldwide, the rural is in retreat, and small farmers, who are actually the basis of many civilizations. What were the major civilizations about? They were about small people owning land. Those were the more sustainable ones. The one giant landlords generally collapsed in revolts by slaves, by feudal revolts against the feudal thing. But small farmers have been the backbone of whole civilizations. So 20 years ago, I used to talk to people about the agriculture crisis. Then I started telling people it's larger than agriculture, it's an agrarian crisis, which means hundreds of millions of people who are not, 100 million people who are not cultivators, but linked to agriculture. Weavers, potters, carpenters are also in trouble. This is to be called an agrarian crisis. 10 years ago, I stopped saying that. 10 years ago, I said, this agrarian crisis is a societal crisis. It's affecting all sections of society in some way or the other. Now I say it's a civilizational crisis. When the largest body of small farmers in the world are fighting for their survival, right? It's a civilizational crisis. And I'm saying that I want to show the life of one farmer, one laborer, in each and every state and union territory of this country. What do you think of your role it is in the society as of today? I think that would be a bit self-indulgent and exercise in vanity. I like to see myself as taking a journalism, abandoning the journalism of powerful and working on a journalism of the people. In photography too, I believe there is a photography of power. All your standard archives and ethnographic pictures, what the British took of tribals in the Andaman, these are photography. This is the photography of power. Those who could do anything they wanted the way they wanted. I believe in the photography of protest. I believe in ordinary people dominating the photograph. And I believe that the intent with which you take a photograph is the single most important thing that will determine, like we're writing an article, the intent with which you choose a subject will influence significantly the content. For many people, you are the hero in journalism. For many journalists, you are the hero. Who are the heroes in journalism for peace sign? Many. I mean, going back to Thomas Paine, he wrote the Bible of the American Revolution. He ran the Journal of the French Revolution. He was a key figure in the anti-monarchical revolution of England, which failed, and he had to run away from England to France. But he wrote the book, the highest-selling book of all time, Common Sense. In that, uh, you know, they sold 500,000 copies, 250,000 official copies, and another 200,000 pirated copies. When the number of English literate people in the United States was about 500,000. No, not it was the first book to outsell the Bible. He was a journalist. All his life he earned his living from writing in journals as a journalist. And John Reed, for me, India produced incredible journalists. If there's a person who made me want to be in journalism, many of you know of him as a revolutionary, a martyr, but it infuriates me that even in Punjab they don't recognize that Bhagat Singh was a journalist, a professional journalist. And the only Indian journalist who wrote independently in 4 languages: English, Hindi, Urdu, Punjabi. He learned a 5th language while in prison, Persian. It was a very important language in the 19th and early 20th century. It was the language of the Mughal court. So he learns a 5th language in jail. So he's writing in 5 languages, all this, and in innumerable journals. He's writing in innumerable journals. And all this, by the time he's hanged at age 23, I began journalism at age 23.
So no one who is a working journalist today sort of inspires you, sort of, you look
No,
up
I'm
to?
saying, look, you're a great journalist, you're most prolific journalist, where Gandhi, Ambedkar, Bhagat Singh, of course, I mean, who do you find today to compare with them? Who do you find today who will stand beside a Bhagat Singh and hold his head high? Yeah? Gandhi and Ambedkar, between them, created 140 volumes of collected works. Which one of us as a journalist has put together 3 volumes of the work we've done? Both of them, don't underestimate how difficult their life was, because they started publications, which they might come and find that the British had locked the doors or cut the electricity. So there are great journalists in India even today, but I'm saying those are journalists of epic scale.
Who do piece I look up to in order to get perspective and news? Where do you get your news from?
I believe the age when you could read one newspaper and it gave you everything, one magazine and it gave you that's gone. I look at dozens of sites, lots of newspapers. I get the Times and Express delivered at my home. Online, I get the HK, Frontline. Yeah. And I create my own menu for international affairs. I'm going to read counterpunch.org, founded by my friend Alexander Coburn, run by another very good friend, Jeffrey St. Clair. Now, in all the crap that's coming in New York Times and Washington Post, softening the attack on Israel, you read counterpunch.org. It's unmatchable. It has some of the finest people in the world, from Chomsky to Edward Said, writing for it over the last 5 decades.
And for news about rural India?
I'm saying for news about rural India, you go and do your own reporting. Okay? So the thing is that I have over 40 years built a fairly large network of rural journalists who will tell me if something. I started on the agrarian crisis when, on the farmers' suicides, when Narasimha Reddy, now the top bureau chief of Enadu, he was a little desk guy in Anantapur who also started writing. When he rang me up in year 2000 and told me something terrible is happening in the countryside, please come. I went and I traveled with him, and the first large-scale survey of farmers' suicides took place in Anantapur, where we looked at 600 of them. And I went personally to 100 households which had lost members to suicide. There is that, and then there is my own interest in the game. I'm not going by, I don't choose a place by geographical location. I go with the issue. So if I'm going with migrants, I become a migrant. I'll travel with the migrant. If I will go where the migrants are going. I may not even know where they will go finally. If I'm talking on the agrarian crisis, I will be in the 6 states that have seen the worst of it. Maharashtra, Andhra, Karnataka, uh, Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, uh, uh, Telangana. So these are the states that have borne the brunt of the suicides. So that's I mean, now so I'm looking at a large number of newspapers. One thing I do not use as a source, I do not even keep WhatsApp on my phone. See, I think WhatsApp University is the biggest de-educator. I think that it is all over the world proving to be extremely dangerous and harmful. You see, whenever a new media comes, the first instinct is to celebrate it, romanticize it. So everybody said internet, liberation, free voice. They know that that kind of celebration has accompanied every media platform in history. When Gutenberg printed the moving type, or is credited with it wrongly, because I think the Chinese had moving type before it, they printed books before it. Maybe they didn't use the kind of machine he did. My friend Philip Adams, the great Australian radio jockey, the radio, what do you say? The radio program guy. I mean, he runs late night live in Sydney. Philip Adams once wrote an introduction to the great book of internet jokes, and he says, Gutenberg promised, the coming of Gutenberg promised enlightenment, because people could now read. And what we got was Penthouse and Hustler and Playboy. Huh? Then radio promised us mass mass liberation. Raymond Williams said in the 1930s, radios will liberate humankind. And we got the Berlin broadcast by Hitler. Mass television promised us education for everybody. We got Bill O'Reilly and Jerry Springer. Yeah. And now we've got the internet promising us whatever. You just guess the kind of stuff that you're going to get out of it. And he's written there that what I like out of it is that the number of jokes it makes accessible to me. Yes.
What do you think of the next generation of the things that you want to be covered? The English language press is not going to be covering them. So how do we tackle this contradiction?
Why do you think that the Indian language press is going to be covering them? When I'm saying India Today, Gujarati is not going to be radically different from India Today English. Okay. And more, the regional press has got swallowed by national chains, by corporate chains. Okay? And then the regional language press like Dainik Jagran has become franchisee journalism, right? Nidish can open an edition of Dainik Jagran in Wayanad. Right. You can you can subscribe Dainik Jagran. You pay them so much, they will give you content, and remaining pages, you can write the history of your dynasty in the name of news. That's what franchisee journalism is. So, I mean, you're controlling that. So long as you give your promised profit amount to Dainik Jagran, you can do anything you want. So, I'm saying People's Archive of Rural India, of which I am founder and editor. We publish every day in 15 languages. Pull out your phone, look at it. 15 languages, including Chhattisgarhi and Bhojpuri, which were the two latest languages we've added. We work with 175 translators, of whom in any given month, 40-45 are active. Yeah? Many of these are volunteers. Some of them are retired vice chancellors of universities. They don't need my money, they contribute money to Pari. But the others we have to pay for. We treat our translators, our slogan, by the way, is on languages. Every Indian language is my language. Every Indian language is your language. Yeah. And so we give our translators, we treat as intellectuals making inputs. They look at migrations of words alongside migration of human beings.
I'm curious about how you, in the current political climate, how do you view Kerala? And you often visit Kerala, you often talk about Kerala. The idea of Kerala, how do you view that?
See, my default state is Tamil Nadu because I was born and brought up there, and Maharashtra because I live there. But my favorite states in the country are two very opposite characters, Kerala and Odisha. So, one is bright, boisterous, aggressive, and alive, which is Kerala. Odisha has some of the gentlest human beings I've ever met, especially the Adivasis of Odisha. They're fine, fine human beings, and it is one of the most picturesque places. I've traveled a lot in the world outside of India. It's one of the most beautiful places, and the beauty is enhanced by these people.
I wanted to ask you before you came about 2024 elections and what is your take on how important that is. But then it also struck me that we are in the space, Calicut Beach, where some of the fishermen working along the beach are coming from Odisha. They come from Sundarbans. You have the most expert fishermen in the country who are working in a beach closer to here called Bayport. You have all these people who are coming like 2,000 kilometers, 3,000 kilometers away and working here. So I'll frame my question about 2024 election this way. What is their incentive to go back to where they came from and vote for this election?
See, elections are a very complex game. And in the last 15 odd years, you remember that I broke the story on paid news in the Hindu 2009. But it had been going on for 3-4 years. We did a lot of work on it and broke it. Elections, I would say in the last 15 years, have ceased to be so much about politics as about management. Elections have become a managerial issue. Yeah? By killing politics. Right? So, you might have the art of managerial elections is that you can get millions of people using some way prejudices, communal, ideological prejudices, get millions of people to vote against their own interests. Donald Trump has done that successfully in the United States. Bolsonaro did that in Brazil. Narendra Modi did that in Gujarat. Orban did that in Hungary, in Europe. The Italian Berlusconi did that in Italy, and his successor, Meloni. It's largely dependent on the largest number of people being persuaded to vote against their interests by being made to think something was more important. Than a week ago in the Week magazine, there was this interview where the former president of the Bajrang Dal said the Ram Mandir movement is far greater, more important than the freedom movement. Have you seen it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm saying, and you are indoctrinating people everywhere. You're putting this into the school textbook. You're putting Karnataka, they put Savarkar, they put a story of how every morning on the wings of a bulbul bird, he flew from Andamans to India. Which begs the question, why did the bird take him back? Huh? This kind of rubbish. And the textbooks, kids are growing up with this. Yeah. When the official website of 75 years does not have a single paragraph of British colonialism, what do you say?
And what is your impression on? I know that it's a cliched question about what is the importance of the next election, because every election in India is important. But
Every election is important. The next election is going to be incredibly important. Maybe the one after that. The question is after that whether you will have elections. No. And this one nation, one election racket, which is a racket, comes into play. It's a fraud.
You mentioned about the difference between freedom and independence.
It's the central point of my book. Every one of the 15, 16 freedom fighters in the book want to make you understand that independence is something very different from freedom. One of the characters, Captain Bhau, who's in the book, Last Heroes, Foot Soldiers of Freedom, of which the Marathi edition, the Malayalam edition came out today. The Captain Bhau told me once, we fought for two things. He was a freedom fighter. We fought for two things. We fought for freedom and for independence. We achieved independence. That line says everything. Because all of them saw independence as a one-stop event. You kicked out the foreign ruler. And you created a nation state based on citizens' rights. Freedom is a much larger project. It would mean delivering on the preamble of your constitution, on the directive principles of state policy, and on your fundamental rights.
One question I wanted to ask as a follow-up to when it comes to journalism and attacks on journalism, it's not just the right. The left is also equally doing atrocious things to journalists.
I think that's a spurious comparison. The left doesn't exist in the media. The problem with journalism is you should be looking at who owns the media. Who owns the media? If the left government does something that is anti-journalist, I would certainly condemn it. But it doesn't change my analysis of why the media is what it is today. What you have today is a highly corporatized media. And your corporates, the richest men in the country, are the biggest owners of media. Mukesh Ambani is still, by the way, the richest man in the country. Adani overtook him for 2 days, now he's back. He is also the biggest owner of media in the country. largest bouquet of channels is Network 18. Mukesh Bhai doesn't know the names of all the channels he owns. I could probably tell him. And I probably don't know about some which he may be holding Benami. Right? But I'm saying the content of the largest media houses is not in the least influenced by your left government. Let me tell you what it's influenced by. The biggest billionaires in India are the biggest owners of media. Your billionaires are people whose money comes from exploiting public resources by contracts they get from the state and government. Okay. Now, Adani suffered such losses last year. He's back to his earlier position because LIC was made to pour 1,000 crores or something into it. Yeah, that's your money and mine. Literally mine, because I keep most of my savings in LIC annuities. I am funding Adani. I don't want to, but you're doing it. Now there may be projects like in Rajasthan or elsewhere where a government uses the expertise of various corporations. I am absolutely against the existence of corporations in the media. Yeah, the fundamental problem of our time of media is corporate ownership. The digital monopolies, does the left have any influence over that? The largest monopolies in human history are Meta, X, yeah, right, Microsoft. These are the biggest digital monopolies in history, and they are nastiest monopolies in history because they have one quality that no other monopoly in history had. These guys own your personal data. I call them human data traffickers. There is no left government that has any say in that. By the way, all of us journalists suffered during the pandemic because government got, when we covered the farmers' struggle, government of India, as whistleblowers have said, got Google, Twitter, Facebook to change their algorithms so that the number of searches for farmers' protests collapsed. Pari, we doubled and trebled our viewership in the first 6 months of the farmers' struggle. Then it stopped. Why did it stop? Because they got them to tweak the algorithm. There is no left influence in that. Now, why do they do it? Why do they succumb to the government? Facebook, the largest revenue market it has in the world is India. If the central government cuts them out, they lose their biggest revenue. Remember what USA and India did to TikTok. Just simply the most popular social media ever. But they're able to kill it. Giant private monopolies like these guys are more vulnerable to state and government pressure than anyone else. And at the same time, they are capable of doing more damage, mass propaganda, than anyone else.
One last question: Do you get any free time at all? And between
I
all
don't know what
this-
that is. Sometimes wish I had free time, but I really don't know what that is.